Well, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us. Summer is here, and as temperatures rise outside, the world of entertainment has some inspiring new projects heating up headlines.
That's right. Devon Franklin's latest TV show on marriage has couples and singles alike excited. Plus, we're bringing you an inside look at Maverick City Music's upcoming project that has fans, like me, eager to listen. Here's Ephraim Graham with this week's Top 5 Stories from Studio 5.
At number 5.
These others were just forgotten people in history.
These others are Kenny Washington, Woody Strode, Bill Willis, and Marion Motley, who the Pro Football Hall of Fame will recognize as trailblazers at this year's enshrinement ceremony.
These men integrating football a year before Jackie Robinson is crucially important. These 4 men created a foundation on which generations built upon, and their actions, both on and off the field, opened a door that allowed other people to follow.
The game will honor the Forgotten 4 with the Ralph Hay Pioneer Award, which is presented to individuals who've made significant, innovative contributions to professional football.
Bill Willis, Marion Motley, Kenny Washington, Woody Strode, they never had the adulation, they never really gained the acknowledgement that, say, a Jackie Robinson did for what they did for pro football.
At number 4.
Hi, I'm Devon Franklin. I want you to hear our story.
Producer and preacher Devon Franklin has a new role as a relationship expert on a marriage reality series. But he says shame nearly caused him to turn down the invitation, posting on Instagram, "Last year I agreed to do it, and then my divorce hit. They came to me and said that didn't matter to them because they still felt like I could help their couples. I felt shame, and that voice in my head said, 'You're a failure. How can you help anybody save their marriage when yours didn't work out?' That voice in my head also had me thinking about what would people say. And then I had to ask myself, is this how I'm going to live the rest of my life? In fear about what people say. I refuse to live in fear or shame."
No matter what you're going through, you are not alone.
At number 3.
I wanted to show them something that wasn't an illusion.
It's a Studio 5 first look at the 6th film in the mega Jurassic World franchise.
We can't keep her here forever.
They find her, we're never gonna see her again. We gotta protect her, that's our job.
Humans and dinosaurs can't coexist.
Jurassic Films has always been a merging of science and imagination.
Jurassic World Dominion hits theaters next week, and box office estimates exceed $400 million in the U.S. alone.
Children are fascinated by things that they can't possibly imagine, but do have proof of.
Ellie Sattler.
Alan Grant.
You didn't come out all this way just to catch up now, did you?
You coming or what?
At number 2.
Help us to love and see each other the way you love and see us.
That's Kirk Franklin joining his voice with Maverick City Music and inmates from Florida's Everglades Correctional Center. For an 11-track project. Kingdom Book 1 releases June 17th. At number 1.
I wish to promote you, Mr. Presley.
Elvis has entered the building. The biopic about the King of Rock took over the Cannes Film Festival Wednesday evening. Stars Austin Butler and Tom Hanks hitting the red carpet, along with director Baz Luhrmann and Elvis's ex-wife Priscilla. Variety says the film scored a 12-minute standing ovation when it was over, and it opens in the U.S. June 24th.
The breakout star of the Elvis biopic is on the cover of the latest GQ, where he gives credit to an acting mentor who helped him land the big role.
Saving you from pipe dreams. I know now from my own experience that they're the things that can really poison.
Denzel Washington recommended Butler for the Elvis role based on his work with him on Broadway in 2018 in The Iceman Cometh. Butler tells GQ Denzel even mentored him back then, saying, I sat down, it's just Denzel and me in this empty theater. He started giving me acting advice, and he really took me under his wing. He started telling me thoughts about the scene. Denzel always goes back to gratitude. I look at that for longevity in any career, having those moments where at the best of times or the worst of times, you're being grateful for what you actually have and having humility.
I'm not finished the race, but I feel like I've passed the baton. When you run a relay race, when you hand the baton off, you still run about 20, 30 yards behind the next person. So I'm still running, but I'm enjoying watching this generation take off, take the ball and run with it.
Well, Ephraim, welcome back to the show. Tell us about Devon Franklin. He's opening up about his struggles and what effect has his transparency had so far?
Opening up about it for the very first time, as he said, he was invited to do this show, and he initially turned it down because his divorce hit, and he thought, what could I say about marriage when mine didn't work? And he says that he decided not to live his life in shame and to work on the project. It's actually coming out in a few months, and he said what God did for him in working on that project was all the issues that he actually faced in his marriage served as advice for those struggling in the marriages that he was counseling on air. He's opening up about it, like I said, for the very first time. And the fact that, as you can imagine, shame certainly surrounded failure, because his platform, to a large degree, when he got married, was being pure, waiting for the right person. And he and his wife worked together to minister to other people and then to watch their marriage fall apart. He did feel shame.
Yeah, I can imagine. It was definitely a sad day when I found out that him and Megan Good were splitting. But absolutely. I think it's really good that he's, overcome that shame and fear and just pushing forward and can, still give advice to...
Absolutely. That's going to bless other people when we're open about our struggles. It only blesses other people.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, we got to talk about one of my favorites, Maverick City Music. So give us the scoop on their upcoming album featuring Kirk Franklin and the inmates from the Everglades. That's amazing.
This entire project was shot with 1,300 inmates from that prison in Miami. 1,300 served as background vocals for this. The reason they did this is they wanted to bring and draw attention to the issue of mass incarceration in the United States. Now, Maverick City has been doing this for years. A year ago, they did an album trying to show attention to the violence going on in our country and the importance of recognizing Juneteenth. And now they're using their platform, along with Kirk Franklin, to shine a light on mass incarceration in this country. And they said what they want to see happen is not just that people will enjoy the music, but they will also then figure out a way that they can take action. So you're going to see 1,300 inmates singing background on Kingdom music. And what I've heard so far is beautiful. They begin their tour tonight, and there'll be a new single dropped from the album on Friday, and then the album on June 17th.
Wow.
Just in time for Juneteenth.
Yes, you got it. Right. No accident there.
Right. I love that they're using their platform to really shine a light on some much needed issues. And I mean, it's just amazing to see. Even before this project with Kirk Franklin, I follow Maverick City on social media, and they had been going to different jails and that sort of thing, and just really, performing for them.
Absolutely.
And sharing the gospel with them. And it was just really powerful to see that, too.
Taking the kingdom to them.
That's right.
I love it.
Exactly.
All right, Denzel Washington, he's talking about the importance of mentorship this week. Tell us more about how his guidance has affected the upcoming film about Elvis.
The lead character literally owes this role to Denzel. Denzel, after working with this gentleman in 2018, cold called the director to say, I haven't seen a work ethic like this. You need to take a look at this man. He takes a look, sees the performance, and says, I found my Elvis. And then we learned from Butler in GQ this month that actually Denzel spent a lot of time with him when they were working on The Iceman Cometh, advising him, mentoring him, and he loved what he saw out of him. And it's nice to see that Denzel is doing it for him, and not just for him. I'm hearing more and more stories from other young actors saying how Denzel took them under his wing and guided them.
That's awesome.
Indeed.
Yay. I just love him.
Me too.
Denzel. I mean, and the other guy too. But, you know, Denzel too.
The other guy. We can't remember his name, but he's the other guy.
And I'm excited to see the movie.
Right. Indeed. Austin Butler.
Austin Butler. There we go.
There
That's his name.
Yeah. Congratulations, Austin.
Indeed.
Oh,
Well, Ephraim, thanks for being with us. For all the latest in entertainment news, all you have to do is check out his weekly shows called Studio 5. You can watch it on the CBN News channel or online at cbnnews.com/Studio 5.
Helen Smallbone knows what it means to love without measure. She is the unsung hero of her 7 homeschooled children, 3 of whom you may recognize. But beyond championing the careers of Rebecca St. James and For King and Country, her most cherished accomplishment in life is being a mom. Take a look.
Helen Smallbone is an author, co-founder of Mom Life Community, and a podcast host on Access More. She's also the mother of 7 and grandmother to 14. A few of her children include Rebecca St. James and For King and Country singers Joel and Luke Smallbone. Even though the Smallbone family has known great success, times weren't always easy. During their toughest trials, they learned to work together to not only survive, but thrive. In her book, Behind the Lights, Helen shares their inspirational journey, encouraging you to always trust God regardless of what you're facing.
Helen, welcome to 700 Club Interactive. We are so happy to have you with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. This is such a great pleasure.
So now, you came to Christ at the young age of 13. Tell us about your experience at the Billy Graham Crusade, if I'm correct.
Yeah, my dad, I'm a pastor's kid, so we grew up in the church. And our family, well, actually the church was doing, being involved with the Billy Graham Crusade, and I was part of the choir. And when Billy gave his message, I realized I don't think I'd ever really made that choice for myself to become a Christian. And so I went down, and that was really the start of obviously we all have a journey, and our journey hopefully is growing in Jesus and then in our faith. And it really, that was the beginning of a progressive growth. We ended up having, I had a renewal experience a couple of years later and really deepened my faith. And then God, as I invested in my relationship with Jesus through reading, Bible reading and devotionals, I really grew stronger. And that's really been my life journey, is growing in Him.
What a journey it's been. Now, your husband, David, broke into the music business in Australia after some success. What happened?
We were in concert promotion, and he managed his brother's band, Family, in Australia, which was a gospel music band. And then we were also doing albums. He distributed records in Australia as well as recorded them. And we were promoting a tour in 1989, and 1988, I think. And then he basically lost $250,000 on that tour. And we knew it was going to be major life change. And then in 1989, another door closed where he would have been able to market Christian music in Australia, a recording at Hills CLC. And then he had the opportunity of coming to America that we were pursuing to work and manage a small record company, a praise and worship record company for Carmen, who we had a really good relationship with. And then that door closed. And then we realized, wow, okay, where's God taking us on this journey? Because he couldn't see any other way out. So he ended up coming to America and finding that a management job with another Christian artist here in Nashville. And we used the tickets for the family that Carmen had actually bought for us and came here in 1991. Basically with we were 6 kids. We had 6 kids. I was pregnant with number 7, and I had 16 suitcases, which was the max we were allowed to come with. And there started a new journey that we had just had to rely on God to provide for us, because we basically, most people, when they do a big change like that, they've actually got a nest egg that they can lean into, you know, that'll make them survive for a couple of years. We basically had nothing. We were living hand to mouth.
Wow. Well, let's turn to your daughter, Rebecca. She was signed by Forefront Records at the young age of 16. How did you guys as a family navigate that decision?
We had actually started that process in Australia. She did support Act for Carmen actually when she was 13, after having been noticed that she could sing in her local Christian school and was put into a Christian rock band there. And then when she was 14, David, we knew the birth in Australia of praise and worship music really in its early days. And so we got her to record a small album of praise and worship songs that came from that church. And then we brought that to America. So we'd sort of been inkling that way for a while. And I think David had thought that this could be a possibility down the line. And then when we had doors closed here in America as well, he lost his job with that, managing that artist after 2 months. He did manage another artist, but he knew he had to sort of create something new and fresh for himself. And that's when he started shopping Rebecca around with the album that we'd record in Australia. And that started to open doors. And yes, when she did get signed by Forefront, I think in 1993, and then her album came out at 1994 when she was just 16 years old.
Wow. Speaking of her, we guys know your last name is Smallbone, but this is Rebecca St. James. So what's the story behind the stage name?
It's actually a really, really sweet story. So Eddie DeGamo, who signed Rebecca, he was the A&R for Forefront Records. He had a fairly distinctive surname, DeGamo, and he had said to Rebecca, and to David, Smallbone is an unusual name. It actually sounds like an American Indian name and something that you don't catch easily. And I had a distinctive name. And my advice, if it was my daughter who was going into music, would be not to use her surname. And Rebecca was offended first up. And he said, listen, what about, we need to keep it into the English sounding sort of name so that you set apart, you're a bit different. What about Rebecca St. John? And she was like, you just can't pull a name from anywhere and say, okay, this is your new name. And so we went to both our parents, my parents and David's mum, and we said, what's a family name that we might be able to use? And it was David's mum who came and said, you know, my husband, David's father, died not long before. And she said, what about if you use James? And in memory of her grandfather. And when that happened, it was like a light wave. It was like, this is right. This is good. I can wear this name because it's my grandfather's name. And so that's how Rebecca St. James came. And I think it was a gift. Eddie did give her a gift. It helped her have her own sort of family identity in a way, and then her persona, stage persona.
Makes a lot of sense. Have to talk about your other two children, also Christian music scene members themselves. What's the backstory behind For King and Country?
Well, when Rebecca started going on the road, by then we had started working together as a family, doing odd jobs. We were raking lawns, mowing lawns, cleaning houses. That was putting food on the table. And we'd so become reliant on being with each other that once she started touring, we knew we couldn't be separated. So David thought, well, I've got these 5 boys, free labor. What about if we all traveled together and they learn how to support Rebecca, how to set up the stage, how to set up the lights, the sound. And that's what we did. And it just continued and continued. Joel, at age 12, ended up becoming stage manager, as well as he started doing background vocals for Rebecca. Wasn't that happy about it to start with, but once he got on the stage, I don't think he ever wanted to leave. So he's been there since then. And then Luke had started doing some background vocals as well. And then when Rebecca, Joel especially knew that God was leading him into music. And then David had a very unenviable task of saying, I don't think you can do it on your own. What about you bring Luke in and you do it as a duet? And so Luke then came in and they did support background vocals for Rebecca, and then they did the opening for Rebecca for continued concerts. And that's really where Joel and Luke started to do the grind. They say it takes 10,000 hours to really own skills in whatever job you're in, and those were the boys' 10,000 hours in supporting Rebecca.
Oh, beautiful. Real quick, I know you've devoted your life to empowering moms everywhere. How have you been doing that?
Well, about 5 years ago, a younger lady mum and myself set up Mum Life Community. And then a couple of years ago, we were given the opportunity to do a podcast with Access More. And my heart and passion is for mums and the family. Mums have the hardest job on the planet. They're probably the most unrecognized of any. And I just want to pour in this latter season of my life. I want to encourage and pour into younger mums through the opportunities that God gives me.
Beautiful. You're an amazing mom yourself. Helen, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to remind you at home that the book is called Behind the Lights. It's available wherever books are sold.
Well, have you ever wanted to explain the gospel to a friend but didn't know where to start? Well, if so, you're definitely not alone. In fact, one of our viewers named Jared commented on our YouTube recently and asked us to talk about this. And here's what he said. He said, how can I effectively witness to Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, and Unitarians specifically about the Trinity and the deity of Christ? I want to communicate the gospel to them, but never really know what to say. And I would say, Jared, I'm right there with you. So here's our expert on the show today.
I'm an expert, but...
But first, I don't even really know the difference between, like, what do Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, and Unitarians, like, what are their core beliefs?
Well, they're all American religions, if that helps you. Back in the 1780s, the Unitarians started, and it was a movement that said doctrinally there's only one God, and so they were against the Trinity. And it started in Boston, Massachusetts in the 1780s, right during a pretty tumultuous time in our country, the Revolution and the formation of the new country. Some Congregationalists joined with them, and the Unitarians are primarily in New England, although they have spread. Mormons came 1820s to 1840s. That's when sort of the founding of it. But they actually emphasized Jesus Christ, so you may want to look at, are you properly lumping them in with Unitarians, because it is the, Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, and so that they consider themselves Christians. Jehovah's Witnesses are later in time, and again, they, the Christians have got it wrong, and they're polytheist, and you have to, come back to the true monotheism. Just underlying all of this, you have to consider this is a foundational truth. You will never argue anyone into the kingdom of heaven.
That's true.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You don't conquer in witnessing, and it's the role of apologetics is to encourage believers and give them a framework of belief. So the establishing verse for the Trinity is, let us make man in our image. God is not using a singular, and that is absolutely in the original Hebrew of Genesis, which is the first book of the Bible. Let us make man in our image. So people have a triune nature, and we just automatically know this. We have a body, we have a soul, we have a spirit. All of us experience that. All of us has experienced the spirit is willing and the flesh is weak. We all have these times where, boy, my body really wants to eat some ice cream right now, but my mind says, don't do that. You don't want to be the ever-increasing man. So, the warfare that goes on between what is your will, what is your spirit, what is your flesh, in us, it's a warfare. In God, it's a unity. And one of the goals of being a Christian is to come into unity yourself. Where you are properly aligned, where your will is absolutely, I'm governing everything. Everything's going to come along. I'm going to, figure this out. And your spirit says yes and amen. and then your body's sort of the last one to say yes and amen, but it comes along. The same way, Jesus is God in the flesh. The Holy Spirit is the breath of God. And God the Father is the will who created it all. I am the I am. So that is the explanation, but when you're witnessing to people, arguing isn't going to get you there. What's going to get you there? This is what Jesus did for me. And if you pray and ask him to do the same thing for you, you'll get an answer. And that's a wonderful way to share. This is the word of my testimony, and here is what God has done for me. We all have our own gospels, so preach the gospel of what God and the good news of what God has done for you.
Amen to that.
Here's a word from 2 Timothy. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Well, tomorrow, racial, social, and political divisions. What will heal America? Meet the man who says it's revival or we die. And that's on tomorrow's show. For Ashley, for me, for all of us, God bless you. We'll see you again. Hello, I'm Gordon Robertson. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more encouraging videos like this one. Welcome to the 700 Club Interactive family, and God bless you.